Hello and welcome this evening. There was a bit of a delay there. Really great to have you back with us this evening. So, as per usual, Carolyn and I have quite a few little conversations in between our lives, and we actually share with you what comes up for us in our own processes during the week that's preceded. And we've been talking quite a lot about anger and how to use anger and positive anger. So, hi, Carolyn. Would you like to start us off talking about positive anger?
Yeah, hi Lisa. Hi everyone. Amazing to be here again. Absolutely love these lives and an opportunity to discuss and to contemplate on these topics. And I know each, like we always say, each interview and each conversation leads on to the next. So what came up? Well, we were always talking about creativity. We're talking about emotions, and I was speaking about for me how positive anger. The journey for myself, I suppose, just taking a step back and putting into context that I suppose for myself, I definitely was somebody who suppressed my emotions for many years. Like I suppressed. So I was very creative in the world, and I did a lot of creative things. But actually, my emotions, I kind of dampened down all the time, so I could kind of keep moving forward. So then it kind of came to the stage where I realized then that to actually really start using your emotions as a fuel for a deeper sense and a more truer sense of my own unique creativity was huge power in the world. Because before I was always creating for other people. I was creating, like, for in the corporate world, I was creating campaigns for initiatives all over the world or whatever, and it was always on somebody else's intention, I'll say. But then when I started actually going into myself and doing my own inner work and unpacking my own emotions, I got in touch with a truer sense of my own feeling state, my sensing state, my ability to be able to connect with the world and life itself. So then when that happened, you're a lot more, I suppose, open to what's happening in your environment. So when then the environment you're you're living in, like the world, the time that we're in at the moment, started to kind of really inform me in a way that I could see the difficulties in the world, the challenges in the world, or something that I became inspired to try and change. So you could say there was like this positive anger where I would see something that was very unjust, and I would want to this kind of welling up of emotion around wanting to change that. And I would say, that has been emotional anger. Once I got rid of like the suppressed anger, which was kind of could be destructive in the world. You know what I mean? There's a difference between the destructive anger and then the positive anger that can create change. Once I had kind of expelled that kind of stagnant resentment and bitterness and things like that, I got access to this new level of creative force. The positive anger where you're inspired when you see something unjust or something that's happening in the world that needs to be changed, that you can use your creativity, you transmute that kind of upwelling of anger into a creative force, and you move out into the world to do something about it. So I just think that's really interesting in terms of how active we can be in the world, and how the importance of working with our emotions and investing in getting that coaching and investing in getting that guidance on how to move through that can really not only like change your relationships, but help you become this massive power of kind of creativity in the world, and also to help you fulfill your unique potential, and why you're here becomes revealed once you've done that work. And I don't know how, Lisa, how your reflection on that personally and then with clients would be amazing to hear.
I think that's exactly just so well put. how we can work with our emotions to transform them into a reactive state, because often we don't want to be angry, because that has a lot of implications for how acceptable we are to others, how others will love us. And often as a child, I learned to suppress anger, and I was never angry, and my household was never angry. My parents never fought. Nobody ever raised their voice. Like, it was a very peaceful household, but there was all this stuff going on underneath that was never dealt with. And I actually chose an angry partner, and I had kids that were always angry, and I used to find it so disturbing. I was just like, I was just so, for me, it was just so agitating, and it was just this, like, really, I just found it so difficult. And that was because I'd had all this anger that I just could never, ever express. And I think that's the thing. It's like we see anger, like, especially for me with my first husband, I saw the anger as something really bad. But really, it's just telling me something. If I get, and now I've had a few instances in my life where I've actually felt rage, and rage, so that I felt the energy coming up my body like a fire, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, actually being with the rage has been really incredible, because I've felt the rage come up, and I've actually used it to speak to somebody about a situation that's not right. And I was only able to do that after I really got in touch with anger and allowed myself to be angry, and no longer started to see it as a reaction that was out of control.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing, right? It's like the more I can lean into my emotions, the less fear I have around them, the more I understand them, the more when they come up, I can take myself out of reaction, or not even be reactive, but I can just feel them, and then I can use them. I can turn them into something that actually fuels my creativity, and it fuels my growth. And I think that is really the biggest key with emotion, because if we're not doing that, then all of that emotion is getting in the way of the relationship that we have with others and the relationship that we have with ourselves.
Yeah, it's so important, Lisa. And when you're talking about rage there, that's an amazing point, because, I often, when you witness somebody in rage, or if you know somebody who goes into kind of these fits of rage, now when I look at that, I can see where it is suppressed anger being built up, and all of a sudden something happens and triggers, and it just all comes out, and it's very destructive because it hasn't been processed. It's like this piling up all the time, and pushed down all the time, and then it just explodes like a bomb that goes off when it's triggered, and they're just looking for an outlet, because it's like, and you said something one time, I was just thinking, it was so true and so amazing. It's so important for people to understand about emotions and negative emotions that we're holding, like you said, that we're holding them down. It's not that we're numbing them, we're actually constantly trying to keep them down all the time. And it's actually something that we're using a lot of energy in doing. So then when you come up against somebody who triggers that, it's like a big landmine. It just goes, because you want to release that. It's so hard to hold on to that all the time. I can imagine then you have an outlet for it. It doesn't really matter who it is or what it is, but it just has to come out, because it's like energy that's being built up, like bubbles being built up, or it's a pressure building, the pressure, and then it just explodes. And then it can be very destructive. So if you choose consciously to go into your emotions and to really work through that, then when that force that comes up, which is kind of the force of life itself as well, it can be consciously directed in a creative way and an innovative way, because there's not that negative emotional experiences that haven't been processed. It's not you diffuse the bomb is being diffused. And that energy is available, and you're not holding on to anything. But when that energy comes up, it doesn't have that block in the way, it doesn't have that. It's just like pure energy. So the pure energy then can go into creating initiatives or doing whatever, you know, actions like love and action. That's where that love and action comes into play then. So then you have the intention from your heart, something that wants to be done, but you're using your mind then to bring that consciously into where I'm going to place that action and how I'm going to make that change. And I feel safe in myself doing that because I know I have control of
Yeah.
that anger, that
Yeah.
positive force that can change life and change things in a positive way. And it's really important, isn't it, to kind of
Well, that's you having a relationship with
yeah,
having a relationship with your anger. And if you have a relationship with your anger, then you understand it and you can work with it. So the anger doesn't have to create massive conflict in your relationships. You can actually communicate. Like often, what we perceive as normal is that any disagreements get resolved with anger and conflict. But that's only because we don't really know how to communicate without the intensity of that emotion behind it. So the better our relationship is with everything we feel, the more effectively we can communicate. And anger, like I've heard time and time again, that anger, if it's not exploding out, it's going inwards, and that becomes depression. So there's a lot of reasons to actually be okay with feeling angry and allowing it. You know, some of the things that I did to start with, because I can remember the more work I did on myself, I actually got quite angry at myself because I started to see where I'd abandoned myself all through the years. And then there was anger at, you know, like society and my cultural upbringing that informed the way I made decisions. And for me, some of the anger, like I used to do things like scream into a pillow, or, you know, I still love smashing cups. And that's a bit hard to find a little space where you can actually smash something. But I think it's, you know, sometimes you have emotion that you just need to express in some way. And, you know, even shaking it off, like
like
just
the song,
getting
Shake
out of
It
your
Off.
chair and just shaking it off. That's right, because it's energy, right? So it's like learning how to do different things with the feelings that we have, which is all about our awareness and paying attention to how we feel, and then actually doing something to address it before it gets further down the pathway when it's too hard to address in a way that's actually going to help us.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that what you said about depression, because it's like you're deep pressing down your emotions, and you know the way that you do to let that go is expression, to express yourself honestly, you know. And I know creativity is a great way of doing that as well. And like you love to say about the shaking off, because animals do that. Well, you see them like after being in a stressful point, like even our dog, whatever, whenever they're stressed, they shake because it's like they're shaking off. They're trying to release it from their body, so to stop building up in them, you know. Yeah, like movements, so like even running and things like that. But being able to be honest with how you feel as well, because I think that happens when you're a child, definitely, you know, when you're being definitely, you know, the way you have some kids that are very good girl, good boy, you know what I mean, and then others that are rebellious, and it's kind of becomes subconscious then that you just don't rock the boat, that you're the one who is always, it becomes an identity in yourself. So then you don't have that access to it, you know. So I think definitely it's amazing understanding, even to look at anger itself and to really unpack that for yourself, and just to ask people this week or whatever to have a little think about that. I think, Lisa, would be a good practice, wouldn't it? Are you any other practices when it comes to emotional education that you could share with people for this week?
I think the first thing is always practicing to take that pause. So when you have a feeling and you're just about to react or you have reacted, just taking a pause for a moment, because that pause is your point of pure potentiality. In that moment, you have a choice to either remain powerless to what you're feeling and then go down that path, or turn it around and actually use it to fuel growth in yourself, to fuel creativity. Like, use the emotion that you're feeling to give you information about maybe a different action that you need to take, but use it, lean into it, like welcome it as part of life informing you about what you need to do next, about who you're becoming. And that all starts with that little pause and just really being determined to actually take that pause and practicing it. Just practice. Because really emotions are not there to create problems for us. They're there to give us information. That's the way that life communicates with us, through our feelings. And the more we can lean into it, the more empowered we feel in every moment, which is a hell of a lot better than the powerlessness that I know I used to feel when I had no understanding of my emotions.
Yes, I love that, because they give, like you said, they're giving you information, and then they're also empowering you in your creativity. But you have to be able to take control of that in yourself, so then you can consciously direct that into the world in a positive way. Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, the combination of the two. Yeah, I love that. I think that's brilliant for people to practice and to think about, because definitely for me it was a bit of a realization. And I definitely, once I had done that work, that's where all the poetry and the writing came from and everything, because I started to tap into that next level of creativity when you become empowered in, really letting your emotions speak from your truer self. Yeah.
It's amazing. So, and let us know how you go. Like, if you practice these things, and hopefully you will, keep us in the loop. Ask questions, tell us how you're going, because it's wonderful for us to read and inspires us in our own process, so that we can chat about it next time.
Yeah, brilliant. And we'll be back on Wednesday with a lovely guest on Wednesday, Lauren. Lisa, that's my daughter's name.
We certainly will, at 8 p.m. again. So we'd love to see you there. Thank you so much for joining us. And thanks, Caroline. Another inspiring conversation.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everybody. Talk
Thanks,
to you again, and
everyone.
see you on Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.